Hey, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to another panel discussion, and this is a discussion which is going to be based on being present, being mindful, and and how this can help you help people who stammer. And I'm very excited, and I hope it makes me a bit more mindful as well because I'm very nervous. Okay. Um, as I also have a stutter, and I hope listening to our two experienced speakers can help me as well. So uh, we have um, we have Barbara Dahm and Fiona Thompson are our two speakers. So without any further uh, ado, I'm going to just introduce Barbara first of all.
Hello.
Hi. Okay. Just to tell you a bit about Barbara, she's a CCC SLP Director of Communication Therapy Institute, has over 40 years of clinical experience, and is a board certified, oops, excuse me, and is a board certified specialist in stuttering, cluttering, and fluency disorders. She developed the speech processing approach and presents workshops and seminars on this unique perspective of stuttering. Barbara is the author of Dynamic Stuttering Therapy. With that introduction, I'm just going to ask um, Barbara to continue with her thoughts on presence, meditation, and stuttering. And I think if you can maybe talk for around 20 minutes, that would be good. If you want to extend, there's no issue at all. And over to you.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to you a bit about why I think
Hello.
that, hello, why I think that mindfulness is a really important part of the whole uh, problem and the solution. And I spoke at your first meeting a few weeks ago, and I talked about my perspective. This perspective is built on really my experiences of working with thousands of people who stutter. And I have come to an understanding of stuttering. I won't say I understand everything that there is to know about stuttering, but I do understand what goes into it, and it is a total systems issue. I discussed some of the aspects of it before, that the brain has to be working automatically in order for people to be able to speak fluently. If speaking is such a complex activity, there are so many different areas of the brain that are working simultaneously, that if control is put on the brain when you're speaking, you're going to interfere with the system. The bottom line is that if the neuromotor program is working in its normal way, the speech will be fluent, relatively fluent, at least non-stuttered. But if something is interfering, then their result is stuttering, blocks, prolongations, repetitions. So why does this happen? No, there are so many different aspects of the system that any part of it could be the cause. But one part of it is the mindset, what the person believes, what they're thinking. how they're approaching speaking. And this is why it's really important to work on your mind as well as the way that you're going to speak. Now, when I say the way you're going to speak, I'm not talking about techniques. And I listened to Larry Stein's talk, and I thought it was really lovely. And he taught himself a process at the same time that he was changing his mindset. And he had a really good mindset about, I can do things differently. And this is really important because if a person goes to therapy and even learns the process for speaking naturally, if their mind is telling them all the time, this is going to be hard, I can't do this, this is too frightening, then they're not going to be able to use their natural way of speaking. So the mind, I don't, I have a hard time saying that stuttering is caused originally just by a mindset that might be having difficult, that might be full of fear, for instance. We don't see in people who have been traumatized, groups of people, populations that have undergone trauma. We don't see that there's a great number of people suddenly who stutter because of that trauma. So I won't say that it is the mindset that originally causes the trauma, but it definitely is part of it. And if a person is going to go into a speaking situation and they have an experience, for instance, they go to school and somebody in the class laughs when they go to talk and they happen to be stuttering, this could be a traumatic experience for a child. And what happens under these conditions? Then they think, oh, I did something terrible, I better not stutter, I don't want to stutter. So what do they try to do? They try to take control over how they're going to speak. They start thinking of the words they're going to say. And all this makes the stuttering increased. So if speaking has to be an automatic process where we're concentrating only on our thoughts, but our mind is telling us this is a fearful situation, I'm going to lose face, people are not going to want me, if there's a fear of rejection, then for sure people are going to try to control how they speak more. And it is really important to see that changing the mindset is very, very important. There are many ways to do this. There are, when I work with different clients, I talk to them about meditation is one, visualization is another. There are also affirmations, but I'm not a great fan of just affirmations unless it gets into the body and you really feel it within yourself. Just saying something like, I can do this, isn't going to help unless you really feel, yes, I can do this in whatever you're doing. But mindset has an effect on everything we do. And it's not just stuttering, it's in sport, it's in taking an exam, the way we cook, maybe, in everything, relationships. So, of course, mindset is a really important aspect of the journey of a person who is going from stuttering to wanting to be able to speak easily. And I won't say fluently because I really believe that part of the faulty mindset of people who stutter is that they think that they can control the stutter, and you can't. Stuttering is only the result of the process of speaking. So it doesn't go from mindset, the mindset that you have, to stuttering. It's not a direct link between the speech that you're hearing from me and my mindset. It's my mindset that is causing me to process speech in a certain way, be it in a way that brings flow or in a way that causes blocks. Now, beliefs are part of the mindset, and people do get into beliefs, and that's something that has been reinforced within the stuttering community for hundreds of years. People have thought and believed that stuttering is a problem of saying words, and everybody believes that. It's not true. Stuttering is not a problem of saying words. If it were, then you would have difficulty saying them anytime, but it's not. It's a problem of the process where you're not, you're taking control, let's say, of trying to get words out. And too many areas of the brain are working. We know from science that the process that people who stutter use is different. The brain process is different than the brain process of people who speak with natural fluency. This has been proven through PET scans, MRIs, and we know that the brain is functioning differently. The brain goes into a fear mode, and this is, I think, very natural. When you want to say something and you can't say it, you're having difficulty saying it, I think it's really the most natural, normal reaction is to have fear. And when the brain is processing speech incorrectly, there is always anxiety to some degree because your brain isn't functioning in the natural way. So trying to be less anxious doesn't really help unless you're changing your process. But you can't change the process if you're stuck in the past. And therefore, when you want to help yourself to speak more easily, it is really important to be present, to do whatever you can do. And there are so many ways. Today, we live in a world where there are so many places that you can go to. Mind shift, meditation, groups, so many things that you can do to learn to be present, to be within yourself, and to make your today the today you want to be, instead of living in the past of those beliefs that you had or the experiences that you had in the past that are causing a flight or fight mode to be. So it's really important, and lowering your brain wave activity is something that really helps. Learning to breathe, not breathe in order to speak, but to breathe in order to be. And we know that breathing helps people to feel more relaxed. So it's important, instead of, for instance, rushing into an answer to a conversation and just panicking that I'm not going to be able to get the words out, take a split second. Just feel your breath. I'm not saying to breathe in order to speak. I'm not saying that this is a technique for speaking. It's technique for living, to just be and not to feel that you have to rush to get get those words out. So this is what helps you once you learn the process of speaking normally to take it into the real world. And there are so many ways that you can do it. And it's another thing that I really liked that Larry Stein said. If you go back and look at it, if you haven't seen his talk yet, that small steps are really important. And it's important to do things yourself and to see that it's you who is doing it. When clients come to me and say, thank you for making me fluent. Oh, no, I didn't do anything. I'm just a facilitator. You're the one who made the changes. You're the one who was open to seeing things differently and to using your mind and changing the way you think. There are techniques for doing this. I'm not going to go into every technique that I use with clients because that would take me for a long time. But there are so many things. And what I do want to emphasize is that in stuttering, it's the mind and the process that go together. Now, some people do change their process just by changing their mind. There are people out there who have changed their mindset, and that does it for them. They don't need to do any practice of any sort. But then there are other people who have such a strong habit of processing speech in an ineffective way that they need to learn it. And it's also much easier when you understand what stuttering really is and you can use the process for speaking in the natural way rather than having to wait years for maybe the mindset to bring you to a place where you're giving up control completely. So it helps to have both aspects working together. Now, I don't believe that first we're going to work on the mindset and then we'll work on the process. I think they work together. I wouldn't do one before the other because they really go hand in hand. So in everything that I do with clients, the mindset, the way they're approaching it, what they think, what they feel, their perspective, their beliefs is so very important. And it must be part of the whole process. So I think I've spoken for almost about 20 minutes, and I'd be happy to answer questions if anybody has them. Ariane, it's nice to see you here, by the way, your picture, your smiling face.
Okay. That was really good. It was really interesting. I've got questions, but does anyone have a question?
Yes, I think I may have a question to Barbara. Barbara, thank you so much. I think that was very interesting. There's one point which has been which for the last few years I've been concerned about. You mentioned indeed that the brain of a person who stutters is in some ways different from those of fluent people. Yes, and that, as you say, is that has been established in science. But now I'm also hearing and reading that those differences are they the actual cause of stuttering, or are they the consequences of stuttering? And it seems that there is some difference of opinion as to whether those brain differences are either the cause or the result. So I'm a bit confused who is right.
Okay, well, first of all, not necessarily differences, although everybody's brain is a little different. Okay, we're all have different weaknesses, different strengths. For instance, auditory memory. Some people have fantastic auditory memory, and some people have very weak auditory memory. And they're born, the way the brain develops could be genetic. Okay. I have I have a disability in remembering a melody. Why is my brain different? My brain is different than the normal person. It's to the point where it's really different. So maybe it's in the nature of the brain makeup, but I'm not saying necessarily that it has to be something that is in the brain. It could be just the functioning of the brain, because the way the brain is functioning at a given time, because most people who stutter are perfectly capable of doing everything that is necessary to speak naturally. Their brain isn't, there's not a kind of like a brain damage or anything like that. There's nothing that keeps them from being able. It's not like apraxia or something, or one of the difficulties that sometimes cause people not to be able to do something. They can produce their voice naturally. They can articulate naturally. They can think of their thoughts. They can do everything. But at the time that they're speaking, it's not working all together in the natural way. So some areas of the brain are functioning that don't need to function. And these areas they have found are areas that have a lot to do with monitoring speech, with being the editor of speaking. So it could be that the mindset of a person is causing them to use certain areas of the brain that they don't need to use, but they're using it and they get used to using these areas of the brain. So the difference doesn't have to be in the in the formation of the brain cells. It could just be that it's in the way they function. And of course, if we use certain areas of the brain, then they get stronger and work more. And so it becomes a problem that builds on itself. How much of it is you're born with? It could very well be that weak auditory memory, which is essential for learning language, could be one of the factors that causes the child in the beginning to have difficulty in speaking. We need working memory. And there have been some research studies that show that people who stutter, relatively speaking to other people, have a slight weakness in working memory for speaking. And maybe other areas too, but for speaking for sure. So it could have something to do with it, but then added to that, you get the fear, you get the discomfort, you get the anxiety, which causes the brain waves to go in a higher frequency, and then you're developing further problem. So I hope that answers the question the way I see it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got a question. It's more of a comment as well. That, you said the speech system should work naturally, and if you try it and talk it can cause problems. I think that was really good. I think that was really good. Okay, we can have more questions at the end. I'm just going to go on to the next speaker now, Fiona Thompson. Fiona. So just to give.
Sorry, Dahm. Carry on. I do apologise.
No, that's okay. Fiona, sorry, not Fiona Thompson, Fiona Thomas. I do apologise. Okay, Fiona Thomas is the intuitive mentor, author of a nudge from the universe and master your money mindset, international teacher of Theta healing and spiritual ascension, plant medicine facilitator and integration coach. Yes, so if you can maybe explain the kind of work you do and how it can be applicable to people who have a stutter, and that would be great. Thanks, Fiona.
Thank you. Yeah. And without the risk of, I was sat listening to Barbara and thinking, oh my goodness, that's everything I would have said. Okay. So without the risk of repeating everything that Barbara has beautifully spoken about there, this is maybe a less clinical format in that I'd like to share with you guys, and more of a holistic alternative aspect of working with clients who have a stammer or a stutter or a speech impediment. And I've been a teacher of Theta for about 35 years now, and having worked with hundreds upon hundreds of clients in variations on many, not always trauma-based, but mostly trauma-based. And for my good self, what I've witnessed is that a stutter or stammer is absolutely mind-body. And working with the nervous system, as a rule, it comes from a hypervigilant nervous system at some point in their life, usually 3-7 years of age, usually really early childhood. And when I say trauma, of course, there's varying degrees of trauma as well. What could appear to somebody as bullying or name calling could be held in somebody else's physical body as deep depth trauma. Yeah, so it's really important to mention this is not to generalize or play out anybody's stammer or stutter. It's important to know that everybody holds trauma at different degrees within their body, and everybody's nervous system will respond in a very different way, in a different manner, and usually in that fight, flight, or even freeze. So for myself, I would absolutely work on the nervous system first and foremost. And through my work with Theta, how that appears is that we would energetically scan the nervous system and look at the condition of the nervous system, first of all, to see how it's functioning and where it's functioning. And then, following on from that, we may or may not suggest the use of some plant medicine, which could maybe another discussion or another chat for another webinar. But using them symbiotically is absolutely productive. So looking at an overstimulated nervous system, and I think, what Barbara said about going into that space of anxiety and being able to take that breath. When somebody's battling with anxiety, of course, they're going to be in that hurry to talk or hurry to get it right or hurry in case they say the wrong thing. And then it's just a roller coaster of events. So working with the nervous system, then coming into the mindset, which is where the Theta technique comes in. Now, Theta is a technique of taking your brainwave into a slower brainwave, a very much slower, probably just before you go to REM at nighttime, before you drop off to sleep, your brain would drop into a Theta brainwave. And it's a very slow cycle of brainwave. And having that ability to drop into a Theta brain.
Use this, but you need it.
Okay, sorry, I don't know. Yeah, I'll carry on there. So having the ability to drop into a Theta brainwave, a slow cycle of a brainwave, just encourages a more mindful ability to function in day-to-day life. And it's not that you're in a Theta brainwave every day, all day, 24 hours a day, but it's the ability that if your stammer or your stutter is causing you anxiety, is the ability to take a few minutes out and do a short 5-minute theta brainwave meditation, calm the nervous system down, and then pursue with your conversation. Or added in is the theta technique looks at the programs and the beliefs that have been learned and acquired from childhood upwards. And beliefs around any speech impediment or a stutter could be something like not being heard as a child, or depending on where you were in the order of your siblings, is having to fight to be heard, or not being able to express yourself clearly, or not listened to, or having your needs suppressed. There's so many beliefs around speech impediments that make a huge difference in beliefs and programs. And these beliefs will carry on through day-to-day life and through years and even decades until they're addressed. And it's really important to actually to tap into the subconscious mind and look at what beliefs you are playing out. What programs are you playing out that are not causing the stammer or the stutter, but adding in to the stammer or the stutter. So that's kind of where I would come from. And I'm going to finish it there because everything else Barbara said is I was going to carry on to. So if anyone's got any questions around the theta, the technique, or nervous system regulation, absolutely. Let's take a few minutes to answer any questions.
Does anyone have a question?
You've got a question, did you say something?
No, does anyone have a question? I'm given the option first because I have questions.
Okay.
So the states of the brain, I understand it goes, the theta level is sleep. And if you go into theta while you're awake, you can be more mindful. Is that correct?
Yeah, theta is not quite sleep, but it's a very slow cycle. It's around the 7 cycles per second. So a very sleep-induced or meditative cycle of brainwaves. And absolutely, and it can be done through a very short, I think you hear there's different audios out there about binaural beats or meditations. And the brain will naturally take itself into a theta brainwave where every organ in the body slows down, not just the brain, but every single organ and system within the physical body slows down, taking the body into a space of rest and digest. And then that takes you into that mindful condition. So absolutely. Is that what you were asking, Simon?
Yes, it is.
So when you work with somebody who stutters, are you trying to get them to be in what frequency of the brain while they're speaking? Or is this just to get into theta in order to change their mind and so that their subconscious will get new messages?
Both, Barbara. Yeah, so both. So a technique that they can take away, and if they find they're excessively stressful over the day in a space of anxiety, they can remove themselves for a few moments, drop into the theta brainwave, pursue with the day. But also as a teacher and practitioner, going into to access the subconscious through a space of theta, and then having a look and observation around what programs and beliefs are playing out that they've acquired.
So is there a technique for getting into it really quickly? Like I have to give a speech, let's say, and I'm feeling anxious. So is there a technique to quickly get into that?
Absolutely.
brain?
Absolutely. Yes. I'll be happy to pop it in if there's a group or something that's going to be created. Absolutely. I'll pop something in for you. It's a short, I'm going to say it's meditation, but it's not. It's literally 2 minutes. You can just be there. You program your brain quickly enough to be able to do it. I like your good self. If I'm like going to do a big presentation or a big meeting, I'm like, oh, a bit flustered here. Right. Okay. Let me drop into it. Right. Okay. So it's the ability to be in an awakened theta brainwave, which sounds a bit conflicting, doesn't it? Because you're like, how could you do that? Absolutely. You do. You can. You absolutely can. Yeah.
Fiona, yes, thank you so much. What is the difference between hypnosis or self-hypnosis and your theta. Yeah.
Thank you for that question. Yeah, I'm led to believe that your hypnosis or your self-hypnosis is a slightly quickened brainwave cycle, and that's the only difference. It's just a theta is a lower brainwave. Yeah, so it's much slower. Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Fiona, what is a normal brainwave for people walking around?
Well, if you like, when you and I are conversing, it pops in between delta and gamma, which is super, like hundreds of thousands of cycles per second when we're thinking, when our brain's engaged and we're conversing, literally hundreds of thousands of cycles per second. So when you've got that ability to drop down to 3 to 7 cycles per second, it's beautiful. The physical body responds in just in such a yummy way, in such a sedative way.
And what is the deepest level?
I think there's one below theta, which is like, it's alpha. Barbara might know this. Barbara, what's the one below
Delta?
theta? Delta.
Delta?
Yeah.
Delta, yeah.
Yeah. And I believe that's like 0 to 3 cycles per second, then theta's 3 to 7 cycles per second, and then it goes up and up and up.
We're usually in high beta when
Mhm.
we're tense. In normal would be like beta, and in meditation, very often you get to the alpha waves, which is very good if you can be also in alpha with alpha brainwave cycles, then frequencies, then it's good for changing the mind and being calmer too. So I didn't know you could get to theta in a wakeful situation, but I'd love to see how. I'd love to know how.
Absolutely. I'll put some stuff in for you. Absolutely. So the technique itself is theta healing. It's they created a lady, Vianna Stablis, beautiful American lady, and it's not a new concept by any means. I mean, that was 35 years ago when I became a practitioner, then a teacher, and onwards and upwards. So easy, must be 40 years plus that it's been available. I'm sure it used to be called quantum something, and then she couldn't copyright it, so it's theta healing. Yeah,
Quantum physics.
something like that. Yeah, so it had the word quantum, so she couldn't copyright. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anybody any further questions?
I can actually see how this can help stammerers, as in the moment of stuttering, you're in a fight, flies, freeze response, and it feels like everything is so constricted, and you have to get all the words out there and then. So I can see how this can help people a lot. Yes, I'm looking forward to you sharing the exercises so we can experiment.
I think it's so important to say as well. It's not one or the other. And I'm just reciting Barbara. It's not one or the other. You've got to work on not only the mindset, whether that's affirmations, programs, beliefs, and the nervous system. For me, as a teacher, I'm like let's look at, and it could be somatic work as well. But because we hold trauma in the muscles, the soft tissue, the ligaments, and then we've got the nervous system, we've got the brain waves. It really is mind body. It's a whole program, a collaboration of work together, and not just isolated modalities. It could be your yoga or your meditation or a mindful walk, but it's so important to look into the beliefs and programs and why or where this was created. And it may be, I think, it may be genetic. Maybe you were born, maybe there was some birth trauma, or even in utero, trauma. But it's important to look at where and how and why. And I just think as humans, we like to understand why we do things as well.
I've got a question on the chat from excuse me, Mirelle Klein. How does that account for the genetic component of stuttering?
It does. It doesn't. For that, it doesn't. No, that's not true. So sorry. Maybe I need to just ask myself that question. And I hope what's being asked is, can it work along with the genetic component? So if there's no trauma involved, and it is genetic, but there's still a predisposition for the nervous system to be either in fight, flight, or freeze. So I wouldn't change it. There's nothing I would do to change that. In terms, if I was working with somebody and it was a genetic predisposition, it would be the same route of therapy. Yeah.
That actually leads. Barbara, I'm so sorry. Please proceed.
I was just going to say, we have genetic tendencies. We do, and there is apparently a genetic marker in a lot of people who stutter. Not everybody, but there have been studies that show that your chances of stuttering are about 6 times greater if somebody in your family, greater family, stutters. Not necessarily parents or siblings, but it could be cousins, grandparents, aunts, uncles. So there apparently is a genetic marker, and there are several different ones, from what I know, that in different families where there's a lot of stuttering, there are different markers, but everybody in the family who stutters has this marker. So there could be tendencies, but we know that today there is such a thing as epigenetics, and
Absolutely.
and we can change even the genes, the way not change the genes, but turn them on or turn them off. So I think that it partially experiences, like you say, it could be even in utero experiences, where a person has to be in high tension all the time. They don't feel good unless life is tense for them. And this is an innate need because they have chemicals that are going through their body, and they get used to these chemicals going through their body, and they don't feel good otherwise. But it doesn't mean that you can't change things. Everything is dynamic in our bodies and changeable. We know that. We're not the same people 7 years later. We don't have one cell that's the same as 7 years ago. So we're always changing, we're dynamic. And the thing is that we have to be in the here and now and make ourselves function to the best for us, whatever is good for us. And that doesn't have to mean speaking fluently either. That might not be what somebody needs at a given time. But if that's what if they want to be able to speak more easily, they can learn to do that. If that's not where they're at this point, maybe they don't need to. But we can decide and we can make with our own minds whatever we really want. It's how we develop good relationships. It's how we raise our children. It's how we do everything in life. So if you're a person who stutters and you're listening to this, the mind is really important, and you are the person who controls your mind. Really, we do control our minds. We can let thoughts might come in, but we don't have to stick with them. A thought comes to mind sometimes that is very negative in the fact that it's causing us to be tense or not live a good life. We don't have to hold on to that thought. We can change it. There are ways to change the way you think. And this each person can do for themselves.
I'd like to add on to that, if that's okay, Barbara, and thank you for that. It's beautiful. So part of the theta technique is very much around the epigenetics. And one of the things is if there's a family trait, if it's a genetic trait and there is a marker and it's in the family, And like you say, it's whether you're going to buy into the belief, first of all, to activate the genetic marker. So, but in early years, you always have that choice. And it's like, well, it depends, what the family history is like. And if you've got 3 or 4 siblings with a stammer or a stutter and it's expected from you, then that marker is going to be activated. That DNA marker is going to be activated, or not, as the case may be. And, in terms of biology, when you've got the beautiful strand of DNA and then you've got the energy, the ATP that surrounds it, that belief is loitering with intent, but it's up to the person to go, no, I'm not playing that one. I'm not having that game. Or, okay, I'm going to fall into that. And absolutely, well, 3 or 4 of my brothers have, so I'm going to as well. And that's what Bruce Lipton talks about and Greg Braden around the epigenetics of, we do have that choice early on. It just depends on the environments and situations that surround us. A massive, massive part of what we teach is the epigenetics. So thank you for that.
Fiona, I have Peter, on you go. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Fiona, yes, is it possible to apply your technique just before you actually speak? Because, for instance, I've been taught at the time when I attended a few workshops by Dr. Martin Schwartz, he taught us to apply a technique actually right before you speak, where you actually have to switch off your mind and just think the rest just before you speak. So in other words, I would say, how are you? I am very well, thank you. So you actually create a bit of relaxation just before speaking. Now, is it possible to perhaps incorporate your technique with such a technique, so that you actually apply your theta as you speak, or just in the few seconds before saying a sentence?
Thank you. Absolutely. And I think, like Barbara said, having that moment before, that 1 or 2 seconds, or a few seconds before you've been asked the question, you take that breath. It's in that moment that you can, right, okay, let me just connect in and drop that brainwave and then pursue with the conversation. So in answer to your question, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Fiona, I want to ask you something, okay, about the vagus nerve. How can we activate it, and how can it help with stuttering?
Oh, 2 seconds. I do apologize. Oh gosh, forgive me.
It's okay. Yes, I've always been very curious about the vagus nerve. I know that it runs from the.
I do apologize. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I mean, the vagus nerve is the big nerve. It's oh gosh, there's so many pros and cons with the vagus nerve. For me, there's lots of techniques you can do when working with the vagus nerve, and it might be, like soothing the vagus nerve is the primary thing for a stammer or stutter. That's the thing. But you've also got the ice buckets or the cold water swimming, and really, do you know what? It's about regulating the nervous system. That's what it comes down to. It's the same concept. Regulate, bring yourself into that space of rest, and soothing an over anxious nervous system. But I mean, and it might not be mindfulness, it might not be meditation. Everybody has their own little technique, the mindfulness coloring books, or the mindful walk, or going into nature. There's so many techniques.
Could you just explain what the vagus nerve is for? What is the purpose of this nerve?
It's the big nerve of the body that regulates the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. It's the one that takes you into that autonomic mode, or you breathing, for example, or it can take you out and put you into freeze response. It's a whole big field game. The vagus nerve's another big one. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any practical exercise to soothe the vagus nerve?
Yeah, humming is one. If somebody is overstimulated, to be you're literally humming along your day. There's one way, if you gently rub the earlobe, dropping your jaw and popping your tongue on the top of the mouth. And this is quick things, like really gentle exercises that are instant but quick.
Okay.
Oh, there's a ton of information around balancing out the vagus nerve. Absolutely, yeah. But humming is a big one. Humming is perfect because everybody likes to sing a song or hum along, when the radio is on. So humming is perfect, and it just soothes the nervous system.
That's interesting because one of the things that I teach clients to do is to use their normal voice, which is a buzz, and it is, when they do that, it really is very relaxing, and just by doing it. It's what I'm doing now, and it's not doing anything special with the voice, but it's essential to be able to speak naturally. And it's like a hum, except for that the mouth is open, so it's not a hum.
It's similar.
It's,
Yeah, it's the voice box, isn't it? It's the voice box.
yes, it's the voice box. Yes.
Fiona.
Yes.
Hi. Oh, can you hear me? I just have, thank you so much. I just have a quick question about the fact of like taking a breath in moments before speaking. And I just want to hear your thoughts about what if in that moment that where blocks or panic or anxiety really sets in, and even if you breathe, either the breath doesn't really come and then it's more of a panic mode, what would you suggest? Is it like the humming and everything to kind of calm the mind about this like instance of sheer, it could also be like sheer panic?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Yeah, it's being consciously observant of your behaviors as well. So knowing in that moment, this one's not working. Oh God, just like in that sheer panic kicks in. And it's pulling all the tools out of your tool bag. And it literally is, it's okay to take a pause before you speak or, before you present. And there's so much expectation that we have to keep talking, just like keep going. But actually that pregnant pause is so healthy. And confident as well. And in that moment, that feels like 2 seconds, but it's probably 5 or 10 seconds. There's so many techniques that you could drop into. My favorite is just drop into my theta, or put the tongue at the top of the mouth, take a breath. And that's the vagus nerve, that's the big one.
Okay, thank you.
But the breath is perfect. It's like, take that breath. Come back to breath, as they say, keep coming back to breath.
Right, which is really practice, because
Absolutely.
I often, or before anyways, like nothing was happening. It was just sheer panic and no breath or nothing.
Yeah. So the anxiety overrode everything, but the anxiety got the better of you. Yeah. It's like bring it back in, take another breath. Be observant of the breaths. Feel your breath. Breath work is profound in terms of regulation. Just bringing it back and taking that moment. Did that help at all? I hope it did for you.
It does, yes, and it is truly practice. That's what it is, because obviously everything is it's all like simple things. It is simple, but yes, in the grand scheme of being in a fight or flight mode, or being in like high like anxiety, it like I feel like just everything just blows up for me anyways. I feel like it just everything comes out the window, and then I forget and I just want to disappear. That's kind of more like I want to dig a hole and just like be gone. Yes.
Yeah, it's conscious observation. The key is conscious observation, is knowing, is like, right, okay, and just like stick with it. Be patient, just stick with it.
Yes, hard to do. Yes.
Absolutely. Practice. I promise you practice. Yeah, practice. Yeah, thank
thank
you
you.
for that. Yeah, thank you.
And I can imagine, I'm not experienced, but if you can go into theta state and you're speaking to other people, you can calm them down as well. And
That is exactly the technique.
yeah,
The key is, so if I was working with you or talking with you and I'm in a theta brainwave, and and again we go into cell-to-cell communication, a bit epigenetics, the transfer of energy that takes you into a theta brainwave, and it's that transference of energy, yeah, without getting too down that woo-woo line. Yeah.
um, I'm a student of TMS method. That's what's really worked for me. Sorry, I'm going to ask Arcady to ask a question. Arcady, on you.
Thank you. You should go complete your stuff and then. But thank you. I would like to ask the same question to Barbara. If it's worth to take a breath before talking. What are you saying about that?
To breathe. We have to breathe to live. We breathe. And I'm not saying to take a breath in order to allow you to talk. I'm saying take a breath. You don't have to monitor your breathing all the time that you're talking. I don't believe that, you have to match your speaking to your inhalation. Think about it as they do in fluency shaping. In fluency shaping, there's a whole lot of work. You have to take a breath and then talk right at the top of the breath and think about it. No, but yes, we have to breathe. And I think it's really important. We can't speak if we're holding our breath. And so, yes, just feel the air going in through your nostrils for one breath, just one breath. And then do nothing to try to exhale, because exhalation is a very, very passive thing. It's when the diaphragm relaxes and air will automatically go out of the lungs. So yes, feel the air. That's good. And it does help you to stay present in the here and now. But I'm not saying you have to do it every time you speak. Just if you're feeling uptight, if you're feeling that you're in that fight or flight mode, it's a good thing to do.
Mm, that was a good question. So I want to add, so I try and practice TMS, which stands for, I don't know what T stands for, but it's stuttering as a mind body syndrome, and I think Fiona mentioned that at the start. And what I find about both Barbara and Fiona is their ethos and their method is very compatible to TMS. And I'm no expert, I'm just a student on TMS. What we try and do is, rather than focus on techniques, we just focus on the feeling of safety and just try and be safe. And I can see how theta, meditation, etc., can enhance the feeling of safety. So I've really appreciated your inputs.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that. Much appreciated. And thank you for the invite today.
Thank you, Asan, for doing these talks. I think it's very nice to hear different perspectives, and to see how different people have related to stuttering. So good
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, and I also want to say thank you to both guests, and thank you for everyone for attending. This video will be recorded and uploaded on YouTube. And and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their week.
And you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bless you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.